Welcome to Revenue Arctic Surgery. I'm Ralf, Paschen, former CMO, GTM advisor, and someone who has sat in more than one leadership meeting where a missed number turned into 45 minutes of the department explaining why it was not their fault. With me today, as always, is Arnaud Lagarde, former VP of Sales, former CRO, and the person who has to stand in front of a board and either own a miss or explain why 3 other people should explain. This is our season final. And it's a different kind of episode. Every episode this season, we took one failure pattern apart, position that could not convert, pipeline that looked healthy and was not, discovery that skipped the diagnosis, and contracts that unraveled after that, yes, which is a customer success issue. Today, we are asking what connects all 4. No spin, no polished retrospectives, just the diagnosis. And what connects them is simpler and more uncomfortable than most leadership team wants to admit. In every one of those failures, there was a number that mattered and no single person who was actually accountable for it end to end. There were people accountable for activities. There were people accountable for their own function metrics. There was nobody accountable for the outcome. So the part is that the gap is not a communication problem. It's not a cultural problem. Even though it gets treated like one, it's a structural design failure in how the revenue organization assigns ownership. It shows up as a blame because blame is what fills the vacuum where accountability was supposed to live. So today's episode is about that vacuum. The title is Nobody Owned the Number, Everybody Owned the Excuse. We are going to talk about how revenue accountability gets lost in growth, stage P2B SaaS, why the blame ritual is so predictable. It's almost scripted in these rooms, and I know myself get into that scripts, and what it takes to build an organization where one number has one owner across every function that touches it. Let's get into it. Arnaud, what's your take on it?
Well, I think it's important to see that people have got a tendency to optimize things for themselves. Okay, I think that's where it starts. And when times are good, nobody cares. We're all making our numbers. Everybody's happy. We're all in hyper growth. Everybody's celebrating, and then you start having these sort of vanity metrics: 150% of lead generated, and booking up by 20%. And when you're in that sort of, especially in these maybe the foundation years where you enter a new market, where you find maybe a hair on fire problems, everybody's happy and everybody puts in place great metrics, but what people don't necessarily realize is sometimes there is a drift. Okay, there's a drift in terms of the focus of the individuals. Everybody tend to optimize for themselves, for their departments, and over time competitions comes in, and the customers is now implementing the solutions and wants to fulfill his visions, and sometimes the company forget, because they're all focusing on themselves and development. They forget that in the end, what matters most, and we talked about it in previous episode, is the customer experience. What does the customer thinks of this? And then suddenly we start losing deals, we start losing customers. We start maybe looking a little bit of PMF because the everything's evolved underneath. And this is where, then this is when you start seeing, that sort of discrepancy. And when the market gets tough, this is when people use, a sort of natural to reaction, which is like, I've done my numbers, I'm not the problem. This is not me. I've got my number of leads, I've got my number of leads. The booking was fine. And then you start a sort of, at first quite subtle, but that people start realizing there's started the blame game. And that's I would say sometimes that's the cancer that enters the companies. It's not me, it's the other. So you have, sales blaming marketing, product blaming engineering.
Yes.
And then sometimes people say, hey, nobody sometimes say, hey, what about the customers? We've all optimized for departments, but what about defining shared metrics that are focused on customer health, for instance? But customer health is slightly greater than that. It's like shared ownership. So it's like, is the revenue growing? Not just the booking. Is the revenue growing? Is the consumption happening? You see sometimes all these sometimes selling big deals, loads of licenses, everybody's clap, but then nobody's checking consumptions. And everybody's carry on clapping because we're selling bigger deals. I've been into some companies who say, who check the consumptions? Oh, I think there is a systems where you can go and see how the system. I said,
I
but
think
who's
it's
checking it?
the best one. I think.
Yes. And this is where that should be, consumption should be. This is your compass, yeah. Is the customer happy? So I think this is the challenge. There is that drift sometimes of every functions grows, therefore they build departmental metrics, and sometimes there's silos that are starting to appear because everybody focuses on themselves, and everybody should focus on the customer and the shared metrics that we know drive growth and revenue. So we talked about this, in some episode. I think the customer should be everything. Everything should be customer centric. When we talk about product, when we talk about roadmap, when we talk about defining your value propositions, your messaging, this is the only thing that matters, to be honest.
So interesting. Let me add two things which I face as well. Now you're talking about already existing departments. Everything starts. It starts very early on when people are moving out of founder sales. It starts exactly there. Who was responsible for the number? The founder. No choice. Okay. So he looks into NRR. He looks at what's the churn. He takes potentially personally care about people that they consume or do a consumption, right? Then it spreads out by scaling it. Now you're adding a department. If you're being lucky, you add a ref ops person telling you there's no consumption because he owns the number, right? You've been lucky enough to get that. Ref ops comes very, very late in the game typically because in sales marketing, now we could control the budget. What, do we have enough leads? Blah, blah, blah. No, it's all about, are your customers consume? Because that makes all your life easier. Because if your NRR is above 110%, nobody questions you. That's, by the way, my second part. 110% NRR is a typical approach of everyone. Hey, you're healthy, 110%, 120 would be awesome. Your evaluation goes up like hell. It's all nice, but if a 30% churn, if a 60% growth, it can still kill you because your churn is way too high for that. So you have to do more and more and more to get the growth against the churn, which is a bad thing as well. Who owns that number? Who owns that number of the churn? Now easy, customer success, right? That's the easy part. They own it. No, they don't. They can do it. What's a churn? Churn means product problem, customer success problem, sales problem. It could be anything. Mostly it's a product problem, but it could also be a customer success problem because they don't understand how to use this feature or not using this feature because that feature is a killer feature, by the way, that doesn't exist anywhere on the planet, but anyhow, let's say it's a killer feature. But it's the point. People think they own a number. As you said, I create enough leads. As a sales side, I create enough revenue. This would not be a problem at all in the company anymore. But if still, I just fulfilled my quota. All the other 8 people did not, but I'm the hero. But the company is below that, so below goal. Yeah, but I fulfilled it. It's going down to salespeople. It's going down, and I get paid exactly. So why should I care? And the VP of sales gets in trouble because all the other 8 people not making that money, and they will be also starting blame game, excuse, not enough leads, the product is bad, we had too much churn. Somebody has to own the number, and there's no choice on this. And there's one person owning the number, and the rest has to fulfill that. And the problem is not the VP of sales owns the number alone. It's not happening. Okay, so this is my point. It's at the end, it's not the COO, it's not the CFO, it's the CEO who owns the number, but he trusts all the departments and doesn't own the number. So from my point is a CRO or VP of sales is owning a number as well, potentially, right? But then he has access to everything else. So if a CRO owns the number, then marketing is under the CRO, then customer success under the CRO. Because he owns the number, he has to control the number. So that's exactly where I come from. CRO gets much more powerful on the planet, and I see more and more people are putting the CMO under a CRO, which makes sense because he owns the number, or he or she. Sorry, I have to say that very loud and clear. own the number, because that means that all departments rowing into one direction.
Yeah.
Or not, I generated enough, I generated this enough, I generated this enough. Nobody cares. That's the point.
But
So go ahead.
yeah, I think the challenge is as company grows, people wants to measure, and so they create measuring activities. They create some
Yes.
KPIs, and that's why you end up into marketing has got their own KPIs and sales got their own KPIs. But these are really activity. I mean, even if they're outcome driven, they're still a mark of activity versus full outcome. We talked about you generate leads, but does that generate business? So you end up having loads of vanity metrics, and nobody really tie them to outcome. If you create 150 leads and there's no deals, are they the right leads? If you create loads of meeting at CSM with your customers, but technically you're only looking at support issues, you're not going to create, recurring revenue and CSAT and stuff like that. So that's what I think company needs to think of, like, is what I'm measuring directly impacting my revenue
Mm-hmm.
outcome?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important when you have a review, especially if you're a CRO, that you start with the shared KPIs, the one that are contributed by everybody else across the department, and then you can look at what's his activity, what's the sales motions, and you can take the full customer journey and make sure that you have optimized everything for the customer journey, from how does the lead come in, is it inbound, outbound, what was the messaging, what was the discovery, and you just go, and every time, especially if you have to do a handover to a new meeting to another team, you need to make sure that they understand what was promised to the customers, what are the outcome that the customers is looking to make sure that goes past. But as company becomes bigger, we have the challenge of Chinese whispers. You've all played that game, yeah. So that's why it's very important on big companies to have very up-to-date documentations, and everybody's pressed for time and
So
forget this.
funny enough, Arnaud myself was sitting in the shoes as well as a sales guy and as a
Yeah,
product marketing guy.
yeah,
We saw the blame games, and I call this not blame game anymore. I just got a new name. Maybe I should put a copyright protection on it. It's blame
yeah,
ritual. It's a ritual already.
yeah,
It
yeah,
is,
yeah,
right? It starts with sales says the pipeline generated was low quality. Okay, you
yeah,
started that.
yeah,
I'll come back.
yeah,
Right, they're not doing too fast enough or work the leads properly. Customer success says the product roadmap promises made in the sales cycle never landed, so expansion stalled. So the problem is every explanation is partially true. It's
mm,
partially true. Okay, so that's the reason why this ritual is so durable. There's always enough truth to make it sticky, right?
yeah,
The problem is none of these conversations ever ask the actual question. Who was supposed to catch this before the quarter closed? And why didn't they do that? Nobody asked this question. Everybody said,
yeah,
I did my job. It's just as the outline. I did my job. You are not doing your job. Blame ritual. And
yeah,
funny enough, every
yeah,
time I get into these kind of meetings today as an external advisor, I just sitting there just laugh about it, because it's a 20 years now ongoing blame ritual, which I don't know how this makes it to the next generation. And maybe the Gen Zs are doing this as well later
yeah,
on. So it's an ongoing ritual instead of closing the issue. It's getting
yeah,
better. I see people are not accepting blame anymore. It doesn't help anybody. It's the part of it. If
yeah,
you're being in a structure, you need to find the solution, and not, or the question answered way before
yeah,
somebody has to do it, which comes back to CRO level. It comes back to wrap ups more and more, not the
yeah,
typical sales operation as we know it from the past, which just how was sales operation called, Arnaud? The deal blocker, right?
Yeah.
We call this a deal broker. Maybe they had
Dear
worse name.
police.
Deal police. We had worse names,
Yes.
worse
Yeah.
names than that. Trust me, we had. So they are the deal blockers typically. I only saw one or two guys which really being sales operations leader, which being really customer like and
Yeah.
focused and not just finance people. But this evolved over time into you own the number together with the CRO. And
Yeah.
this is something which I like a lot. It gets less chance for blaming. But the ritual is still persists, funny enough. Okay. What's the alternative?
Well,
What's the alternative?
maybe we need to go back to, you know, I'm sure we've mentioned the importance of behavior and culture, and you know, all these, unfortunately, I mean, culture is not something that should just happens. It's something that you work on. And when you have, I mean, every big company should have almost collaboration as part of their top, you know, behavioral attributes, and it should be encouraged in your culture building.
Yeah.
If we can celebrate good example of good collaborations, it helps. It helps create a different DNA. So when I said earlier that very often people get optimized for themselves or for the department from the, you know, HR business partners and the CEO, this is where you need to work on that culture of collaborations. I say it many times, revenue is a team sport. And there's no I, as they said, there's no I in team. Unfortunately, very often you see the opposite. But this is where, this is the start and the foundations. If you can have collaborative goals, team goals that do not allow people to hide, of course, because that's sometimes the problem with team sport. Then you go a lot faster, you go a lot longer.
Which I
And the
found
customer should be part of your team. The customer should have a seat at the table.
have a good champion in place to help you, definitely. But the point is different. For just to add this to this statement, team sport. About now 25 years in a row, I was sales as well. I was dealing with enterprise sales at Novell, also a company called UC4 where we worked both together at Atomic. What I saw often, the most successful salespeople work in teams.
Yeah.
They integrate people into their deal. They integrate not only the customer success, the support, the pre-sales, the marketing, the product marketing, the evangelist in a deal. They're not standing alone with their pre-sales and do all the jobs. Potentially this works sometimes as well, but these big players who are closing the big deals are typically working in teams. And they're celebrating in teams, by the way. Yes, the money flows to the sales guy, and this guy, sales guy, potentially gets a sales club together with a pre-sales. Nobody else gets a sales club, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the point is, they're celebrating the teams. I never seen a really good enterprise sales who's working with teams to let them celebrate on their own. They always tell everybody who worked on them. You see this on the presentation slides, who was working with them on the deals. These are the good guys. They understand team sport. And that's exactly where it comes to. So to say something about the culture piece, the companies that break this ritual, this blame ritual, they do something very specific. They stop asking which function cost is missed and start asking which handoff failed. It's very interesting. I was sitting in a meeting on this, and it says that they didn't ask for, okay, so how do we fix that? Everybody said, I have nothing to fix. No, somebody took the ownership and said, where did the handoff fail? It's not a blame game, it's not a finger pointing. A miss typically not lives inside one function. And they figured it out quickly. Oh, it's not just me. There are more. There are more departments involved in that. If it lives at the boundary between them, so the handoff from marketing qualified to sales accepted, the handoff from closed won to onboarding, the handoff from onboarding to expansion, that's the problem. If you have been a functional leader in this game, you break that. I said, where's the handoff? Clear definition of a handoff. It's not an MQL is based on blah, blah, blah. No, who owns this MQL till the end? So are you interested in marketing? What happens after this MQL? Are you interested in the outcome from sales telling you there is no wrong timing? There is nothing behind the story. Are you interested in that results? Because you are owning this as well. If the sales tells you You will find out if it's a laziness or not. Easy. But if you said there's no requirement, that should give you an alarm signal that you're already targeting the wrong person, because no requirement as a retraction reason, you should act on that. If you have a lot of no requirements in there, you definitely have a lot of great MQLs with absolutely nothing in there. So you met your number, but you're not listening to what the sales is saying about what's going on there. So the blame games ends, for example, it is marketing sales, if you listen what the sales is saying about them, and then course correct already at the beginning. What are you generating? If you don't do that, just, hey, I made my number, that's exactly the point. So the handoff is not the only thing. Also, listen to what happened after the handoffs. That's the reason I just said already in the episode. I'm a big fan of bonus payment and marketing, not in impressions, KPIs, and I can tell you, marketing numbers, 50 different KPIs, easy. Half of that you would not understand, half of it I don't understand why they exist. This is just a campaign thingy, right? I got, how many clicks do I get on my Google ads? Who cares? Because it'll bring to a lead. I ask this question to people, is that why you get paid on CPC? Why you get paid on CTR? I don't care. Is it not a deal in the end, a revenue at the end? Why would you care? It's just another number. It's just, does somebody click on it? That's all.
Yeah, and I think, we need to almost think about, as you said, these goals, because in the end, if we said revenue is a team sport, and we should create shared ownership, and there are some metrics that we track, but rarely people are paid on them. Like the revenue growth, who's paid just on revenue growth? You get paid on booking, you get paid on retentions, but as you said earlier, you can put lots of booking and then you can lose lots of customers. Your revenue stays flat. So revenue growth, win rate. If you pay people on win rate, everybody on win rate, you'll make sure that your lead quality is going to get better, because you need to make sure that you win the deal in the end. So net retention rate. If you pay everybody on net retention rate, then you'll make sure that you have everybody working around the customers. I also define these hands-off, but sometimes these hands-off are almost the problem, because even if you hands-off properly, there is sometimes a tendency for people, I don't care anymore. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's like, how do we keep everybody focused still to the outcome, not to, I'm passing you the baby, now it's your problem. So, when you design your goals, when you design your sales motions, you need to find a way that people get interested in the outcome. Usually consumption is a good thing, because
it is.
If they don't consume,
100%. You figure out quickly.
Sales guys hate being paid on consumptions. But sometimes that's a measure of quality of the sale as well. Then you don't have the issue as like, I sold this, I promised this, I thought we could do this. So, these are maybe some of the metrics that are more outcome focused, and, if we can embed that into our com plans, and, I think that would sometimes instill the right behavior, and then people would ask for help as well, So that's what I think, where we need to change a little bit the way that we measure and also compensate people.
I think that plays very well back to the point of that's one person is accountable. Doesn't mean one person has to work at all. It is not.
Yeah.
It's if you talk from a RACI concept, you can take it an R or an A.
Yeah.
Consultative is clear and informed is the CEO. So let's say R and A are covered. It's just the outcome.
Yeah.
What's the outcome? But also the authority and the visibility to intervene across the function boundaries, which plays it back to the CRO level or revenue operations leader, whatever you can choose. But a direct line into marketing, sales, customer success, and have a functional, clear understanding. So what's the critical test on that? When the pipeline bookings conversion rate drops, let's say 2 points a week, 6 of the quarter, for example, does somebody see it and act? Hey, what's going on in sales? What's going on in marketing? What's going on in customer success? Is consumption not there? If somebody sees it, you have the solution. But if nobody sees that, they're all waiting for the quarter business review, QBR, and we all hate the QBRs. We all do the QBRs. There is no choice in that. It's not just the nicey shiny presentation. QBR, by the way, is not a shiny, nice, shiny presentation at all. QBR should be where's the business stands. Okay, and everybody has to. And then again, the
But
flame
you've seen all
ritual.
these QBRs where everybody wants to show everything green. Let's not talk about
Yeah.
this. Well, I want to talk about this because that's our problem. No. Let's not talk.
No,
Let's not talk about
exactly.
this. Nobody needs to know.
And the real ownership, now comes the interesting part. That's a culture change. The real ownership is forward-looking and cross-functional. The ritual blame is backward-looking and departmental. Big difference. Okay, the total difference. So you can only build in one of them. You can do both. You cannot look backwards and departmental, and then you do a next one forward-looking cross-functional. You have to make a choice how you make the company happen. So the real one is forward-looking, driven by a CRO, revenue operations leader, whoever the leader is accountable for that number, has to have the power in the cross-functional approach. Doesn't mean it's a line, disciplinary line or something like that, but number really have to clear overview what's going on and get the signals what's going on right now. So you said it right, but you said it naturally. What's happening with the consumption? Oh, we don't own that. Really? Who owns that? It's me. So you have to do this. Done. Not let's wait for. I like that. Let's wait for the QBR. To be honest with you, I was hearing this so often. Everybody gets out of the QBR at a great dinner, and everybody was playing on each other, and they're friends after that again.
It's part of the game. That's what people do.
It's part of the game, correct. So it's a hard truth. You have to change and put a leadership on top of the functional leaders. And it's a hard thing for me as a CEO, as a former CMO. I had to report to a CRO, which is naturally clashing. It is naturally clashing. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
But when you start taking the people element out of it, then you find solutions. I guess that's what.
Correct, and that's.
But
it's very political.
It's sometimes very difficult for people to sort of say, it's not the person that is the problem; it's the system. And maybe that's something that we can talk about it in recommendation things, but in the end, you have to take the people element out of it. I mean, I don't know if we're ready for the recommendation, but it's part of something that we need to think of.
Shortly,
don't look at people. Look at systems. Build systems that are focused on customer outcome.
Correct.
Anyway,
that starts. You get into a second to your free recommendations, definitely.
Yes.
You can't hold it back. I can see it. Never mind. What we are talking today is very uncomfortable for many organizations. It is. Because, hey, this ritual is existing since the founder-led sales is gone, which could be a while ago. And we implemented it. And I think that also, it's like I know exactly where it comes from, this ritual now. It comes just blowing up my mind. All these external consultants out there, all this Matpick, all this kind of thingies, wherever you call it, Spice, I'm not calling companies in there. They're telling you should do that this way. By the way, the same people are telling you the target persona is 53 euros on 3 kids and fly planes and likes to mow the garden. It's not a marketing target persona. It is. And I can tell you, I still see this kind of target persona presentations flowing in and say, Ralf, these are our target personas. Great. So what should I tell them? That I sell them a plane or more, or what should I tell them? Yeah, but this is great. It's target persona. No, it's not. You're not talking about the product. Somewhere this is still existing, like this flame ritual is based on Matpick, Spice, pick and choose. And it's based on that. And then you have to tell me, you're missing the matrix, you're missing the iconic buyer, you're missing this. That's okay. It's a structure, but people are playing QPRs on the game. And that's something, it starts that flame ritual. What would I say on top? So connect everything is the most important piece, and get the numbers clear in place. What needs to be watched by whom, who's accountable for that. That's exactly all about the whole thing. Now it comes to the point, Arnaud, what are the 3 recommendations you want to give? Now I can't wait for yours.
So I'll come back to something that we talked about as the number one, is to create shared revenue metrics. Instead of having all different metrics, define what really is, the common objectives and how do we measure this. So maybe not sales on booking, or maybe not marketing on MQLs, define the shared metrics. So revenue growth, pipeline conversions, win rates, NRR, customer satisfactions, and try to build, different, measurement and compensation that are focused on this. Okay. Consumption should definitely be one. That's the measure of, product usage, product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
If you pay sales guys on consumptions, they will stop selling loads of license without a plan because they won't be paid. Then that $3 million deal that has been muscled into customers without a proper plan for implementations will not happen anymore. So maybe in some point in the short term, we won't be happy, but in the long term, that will create growth and that will create satisfaction for the customers. That will create customer advocacy. So think about, putting in place, these sort of shared metrics and make sure that they impact the sub KPIs and for compensation as well for the different individual. I think we also talked about being, focused on the customers. So I think you need to look at your system, your value motions, create systems of, collaboration, measurements that is focused on customer outcome. So, we need, so like that, you own the outcome versus the different departmental, activities. So, I think that's the second one. And, in the same way, maybe similar, but measure customer progress, not like how many campaign, how many, demos, how many releases, but how do we get to customer value fast?
Mm-hmm.
Not in the end, but optimize. So how long does it take for the customer to be onboarding? How does it take for the customers to experience, the outcome that we wanted? So that will increase velocity
Mm-hmm.
into the sales, the customer journey, and we'll make sure that we keep, that sort of compass. And I would say as well, the customer, maybe we should have been clear about this. Don't forget, the customers don't think about a department in an organization. They don't care
Mm-hmm.
about this.
Mm-hmm.
They get an experience from an organization. Even if you're a good guy and you do the right for them, but the organization fail you, it doesn't matter how well you work. So, make sure that, or don't forget that in the end, the outcome matters, the experience matters, and that's what will build your brand. That's what will build advocacy. That's what will build, greater revenue at lower effort.
Two things I would like to add here. It's great. Number one, I give you an example. Everybody here, 2001, young sales guy. I remember that still. I'm an old guy. So 2001, as CIO of a very big chemical company. I think he's a leader in the big chemical companies in Germany. Now you can look it up. Who was that? All right. Starts with a P, ends with an F. Told me, Ralf, if your company sucks, I still remember you as a name. So whatever comes on the business card, I remember you because I did a great job. You told me that. But I said, if the company sucks, and it plays back what you said, if the company sucks, I'm out. And this means the whole organization. And this means customer success, professional services, the product itself, the features itself. If this doesn't work well, he still remembers me, but he would not buy from me anymore if I be at the same company because he doesn't care. It was not fulfilled. So it just proves it on top. Yes, you can remember your name, but your product failed miserably.
Yeah.
We didn't have this problem, but in this case, it's
Yeah.
exactly the point. Nice to meet you, nice to know you, but don't work at that company because I will not buy from them anymore. It's a clear sign, right?
Trust.
Trust. It's trust. It's trustful. He's retired, so it's all good. The CEO
Yeah.
is retired. Yeah.
No, but that's why I think more and more in this world of deepfake AI, trust becomes very
Trust
important, and it's
becomes very important.
very easily lost, and it takes a long time to win back.
Correct. That's the
So
point. So, well said. Everything. My second thing was already implemented in this statement. So let me finalize this because we are finalizing this season with episode 6. You surface patterns you recognize in positioning, pipeline, discovery, closing, or as of today, who actually owns your number. The place to start is a structured look where go-to-market motion is generally breaking down and why. So Arnaud and I both run GTM assessments for B2B SaaS teams. We ran all of this. We did all of this. We are navigating exactly these inflection points. But to be honest with you, we both are not taking the ritual. We're not taking the blame. We are looking deeply into your structure. So feel uncomfortable and feel comfortable afterwards. The assessment is exactly for that. Maps the motion, stage discipline, and the ownership structure. So you know exactly what you're actually working with before you commit to a board number, because that is the most important piece. How do you handle the board in the game? If this season was useful, share it with the revenue leader in your network. There are 6 episodes in place who is currently explaining this person in the revenue operations, explaining a miss instead of owning one. Thanks for listening to Revenue Architect Surgery. As always, real revenue leaders, real GTM failures, no spin. It's a wrap. Thank you, Arnaud. We will see you next season.
thank you.